Ah, the wealthy, we've all been there, right? Sipping champagne on our mega yachts, wondering if the caviar this week is sustainably sourced. No? Just me? Well, all right then. The point is, we tend to picture the wealthy living these charmed lives, with all their problems magically solved by piles of money. But as we're about to find out, that image is about as realistic as a unicorn riding a Roomba through a drive-thru. Because behind those gated mansions and luxury cars lies a world of very real, very human struggles. We're going to peel back the layers of societal assumptions and expose the truth about the hidden challenges faced by wealthy men. Buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into a world where money can't buy you happiness, but it can definitely buy you a therapist who'll listen to you complain about it. Let's talk about societal expectations, shall we? Specifically, the giant, diamond-encrusted elephant in the room that is the pressure on wealthy men to be providers. We're raised on this narrative. Man gets rich, man buys big house, man single-handedly supports everyone he's ever met. It's the American dream trademark. But like those jeans you bought online, the reality doesn't always fit quite right. Because here's the catch. This provider label can feel less like a badge of honor and more like a pair of golden handcuffs. It creates this implicit pressure to constantly accumulate more, to maintain this image of success, even at the expense of their own well-being. And don't even get me started on the emotional toll. Imagine the pressure of knowing that your loved one's financial security rests squarely on your shoulders. It's enough to make anyone want to trade their Swiss bank account for a hammock and a decent therapist. Now, before you start feeling too sorry for Richie Rich over here, let's be clear. Being wealthy definitely has its perks. But the problem arises when societal expectations don't match the reality of being that wealthy guy. Think about it. If your self-worth is solely tied to your net worth, what happens when the stock market takes a tumble? Or, God forbid, you accidentally invest in a musical adaptation of the Emoji Movie? Suddenly, that pressure to maintain this image of effortless success becomes a crushing weight. It's a vicious cycle where the pursuit of wealth becomes less about genuine fulfillment and more about keeping up appearances. And let's not forget the emotional disconnect this can create. When your identity is so closely linked to your wealth, it becomes difficult to form genuine connections, to be seen for who you are beyond your bank statement. Let's be honest, folks, money has a way of bringing out the worst in people, and for wealthy men this can mean navigating a minefield of envy, resentment, and good old-fashioned opportunism. Imagine this: you're at a party, innocently sipping your responsibly sourced kombucha, when someone inevitably asks, "So what do you do?" Suddenly, the room goes quiet. Eyes lock on you like you're a walking, talking, winning lottery ticket. That, my friends, is the sound of 100 internal calculators trying to figure out your net worth and how much of it they can get their hands on. It's enough to make anyone develop a serious case of trust issues. And can you blame them? When every interaction feels like it might be a transaction in disguise, it's no wonder wealthy men often struggle to form genuine connections. It's like trying to find a needle of authentic human interaction in a haystack of self-interest. Now, you might be thinking, just because some people are awful doesn't mean everyone is, and you're right. But here's the thing: when you're surrounded by enough opportunistic behavior, it's easy to become jaded. It's like that time I tried online dating, only to realize that enjoy's long walks on the beach was code for looking for someone to bankroll my lifestyle. I mean, I get it. Sand is expensive, but come on, people. The point is, this constant exposure to envy and opportunism can lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. Wealthy men, understandably wary of being used, may start to withdraw, building walls of distrust around themselves. This in turn makes it even harder to form genuine connections, perpetuating a cycle of isolation and suspicion. And that, my friends, is a recipe for a very lonely, albeit very well-funded existence. So, you've got more money than a moderately successful Bond villain? Congratulations. You're now everyone's favorite walking, talking ATM. People you haven't spoken to since high school suddenly remember your deep and abiding friendship. Distant relatives develop a keen interest in your genealogy. And don't even get me started on the romantic prospects. Finding someone who loves you for you and not your bulging bank account is about as easy as finding a sober Irishman at a lock-in. It's a minefield of gold diggers, social climbers, and people who genuinely believe that your vast fortune somehow absolves them of basic human decency. You start to question every interaction, every smile, every kind gesture. Are they being genuine, or are they just waiting for you to whip out your platinum card? The cynicism is real, folks. It's enough to make you want to move to a remote island and live off the grid, subsisting solely on coconuts and the bitter tears of your enemies. But then, of course, you'd have to worry about pirates. And let's be honest, even pirates have standards these days. They're not going to settle for anything less than a hefty ransom in gold bullion. The point is, escaping the clutches of exploitation when you're wealthy is like trying to outrun a cheetah in a pair of Crocs. It's just not going to happen. Genuine connections become a rare commodity, like uncontaminated drinking water in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. You're surrounded by people, yet you've never felt more alone. Every interaction feels transactional, a complex dance of favors and expectations. Want someone to laugh at your jokes? Hire a comedian? Need a shoulder to cry on? There's an app for that, probably, craving the warmth of human touch. Well, let's just say there are easier ways to get a hug than navigating the treacherous waters of high society dating. The saddest part, you become so accustomed to this transactional existence that you start to perpetuate it. You pay people to do things for you, not because you're lazy, but because it's the only way you know how to interact. It's a vicious cycle of loneliness and distrust, fueled by the seductive power of wealth. And trust me, it's a recipe for one hell of an existential crisis. But hey, at least you'll be able to afford a top-notch therapist to guide you through the inevitable emotional breakdown. Wealth, my friends, can be a gilded cage. Sure, the bars are made of platinum and the floor is probably heated, but it's still a cage. You're surrounded by luxury, yet starved for genuine connection. It's like being trapped in a 5-star hotel with a fully stocked minibar and a crippling case of existential loneliness. People assume that wealth solves all problems, but let me tell you, it creates a whole new set of anxieties you never even knew existed. Suddenly, you're worried about losing it all, about becoming another cautionary tale of riches to rags. You're surrounded by yes men and women who are more invested in your bank balance than your well-being. You long for the simplicity of your former life, back when a good meal meant something other than a 12-course tasting menu prepared by a Michelin-starred chef, back when a night out involved cheap beer, questionable karaoke choices, and the genuine camaraderie of friends who didn't care about your net worth. But though those days are gone, replaced by a world of extravagant parties where you don't recognize half the guests and the champagne tastes suspiciously like sadness. It's enough to make you want to trade your Rolex for a Timex and your Lamborghini for a rusty old bicycle just to feel something, anything resembling human connection again. And then there's love. Finding love when you're wealthy is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. That's on fire, and also floating in the middle of the ocean. It's not impossible, but it's certainly not for the faint of heart. You attract a certain type, you see, the type who views you as a walking, talking trust fund, a human meal ticket to a life of luxury and ease. They're not interested in your hopes, your dreams, your crippling fear of clowns. They want access to your private jet, your vacation homes, your seemingly endless supply of high thread count bed linens. You crave intimacy, vulnerability, a love that transcends the material. But every time you open your heart, you risk getting it trampled on by someone who's more interested in your portfolio than your emotional well-being. It's enough to make you swear off dating altogether and invest in a dozen cats. At least they'll appreciate the endless supply of gourmet cat food, probably. Let's talk about identity, shall we? When your identity is built on wealth, what happens when you strip that away? Are you still the witty charmer, or just a collection of assets? It's easy to lose yourself in the trappings of wealth. You start to define yourself by what you own, and that, my friends, is a recipe for an identity crisis. Here's a dirty little secret about wealth. It doesn't necessarily bring happiness. It can often fuel a never-ending hunger for more. It's like trying to quench your thirst with salt water. The goalposts keep shifting. What once seemed insurmountable becomes just another number. You're constantly chasing the next big thing, but it never fills the void. The void remains, a gaping chasm, and so the cycle continues. So, you've amassed a fortune. Congratulations. You've also won a one-way ticket to Guilt Trip Island, because society, with its charming tendency to contradict itself, loves to shower the wealthy with praise and scorn in equal measure. You're lauded for your business acumen, your entrepreneurial spirit, your ability to turn dog walking into a multi-billion-dollar industry involving drones and personalized poop-scooping apps. But don't think for a second that you get to escape criticism, because lurking just beneath the surface is the uncomfortable truth that your success often casts a harsh light on the vast inequalities in the world. Suddenly, you're not just a guy who made a few billion, you're a walking, talking representation of everything wrong with capitalism. And the worst part? You can't even buy your way out of this one, because every philanthropic endeavor, every charitable donation is met with a chorus of, well, it's easy for them to give, they can afford it. It's like being held hostage by a moral dilemma with a bottomless bank account. Give too little, and you're labeled a greedy hoarder. Give generously, and you're accused of trying to buy good PR. It's enough to make you want to build a Scrooge McDuck-style money vault. But even then, you'd probably be criticized for your extravagant swimming habits, because the truth is, no matter what you do, you'll never win. You're trapped in a perpetual cycle of judgment. And the pressure to solve these problems can be utterly paralyzing. So the next time you see a Forbes list, remember this: it's complicated and it comes with a whole lot of baggage. Wealth. It's often said that money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you a yacht big enough to sail away from your problem. Except, of course, for the problems that come with owning a yacht. Because let's face it, being wealthy is a bit like living in a fishbowl. Only instead of curious children tapping on the glass, it's paparazzi with telephoto lenses and a thirst for scandal that would make TMZ blush. Every aspect of your life, from your breakfast cereal choices to your taste in romantic partners, becomes public fodder for consumption and judgment. Privacy? Forget about it. You're now a permanent fixture in the ever-watchful eye of the public, and good luck trying to enjoy a quiet cup of coffee on your balcony ever again. And don't even get me started on the scammers. Oh yes, they'll come crawling out of the woodwork like ants at a picnic, each with their own sob story, investment opportunity, or once-in-a-lifetime chance to buy a genuine unicorn horn. You'll need more than just a good financial advisor. You'll need a team of highly trained experts to navigate the treacherous waters of wealth preservation. It's mostly just spreadsheets and conference calls, but with a higher chance of someone embezzling millions and fleeing to a tropical island. And speaking of lawsuits, let's not forget about those. It's enough to make you long for the days when your biggest concern was finding matching socks. But hey, at least you'll have a state-of-the-art security system to protect you. You know what they say, with great wealth comes great responsibility. And a to-do list longer than the Magna Carta. Because managing a fortune isn't just about counting your money and swimming in it, Scrooge McDuck style. Although, let's be honest, that does sound rather delightful. No, managing wealth is a full-time job, and one that requires an army of highly specialized professionals. You've got your financial advisors, your lawyers, your accountants, your investment managers, all working tirelessly to ensure your money is multiplying faster than a rabbit farm during mating season. And don't forget about the staff. From housekeepers to personal assistants to private chefs who can whip up a Michelin star meal at a moment's notice, you've essentially become a small business owner just by virtue of being wealthy. It's like running your own personal corporation, except instead of quarterly earnings reports, you're dealing with the existential dread of whether or not your organic kale is ethically sourced. And then there are the decisions. Oh, the decisions. Investing in a promising tech startup, funding a new wing at the local art museum, buying that private island you've always dreamed of. Every choice carries weight and consequence. It's enough to give anyone decision fatigue, and let's not forget about the constant pressure to make the right choices. So, yeah, managing wealth is complicated. All right, let's talk about aimlessness. These guys have yachts, literal floating palaces. How can they be aimless? Imagine this. You've been working towards wealth, you've climbed the corporate ladder, crushed your enemies, and then you reach the top. But suddenly there is nothing. No more ladders to climb, no more enemies to crush, just you adrift in a sea of $100 bills, wondering what the point of it all was. That, my friends, is the existential crisis of the aimless wealthy. It's a high-class problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless. And before you start feeling too sorry for them, remember they still have the yachts. Now imagine being born into this, inheriting wealth, but also aimlessness, no sense of accomplishment, just a trust fund and a vague feeling like being handed a Lego masterpiece. Impressive, but you didn't build it, no joy of snapping bricks together. Expected to be grateful for a life you didn't choose. Perpetual adolescence, constant search for meaning like starting a dubstep opera or luxury protein bars from Himalayan air. Aimlessness is a real struggle, rarely acknowledged because they have yachts. Maybe they can finally afford therapy. Let's be honest, nobody wants to hear a rich person complain. It's like listening to a dolphin complain about having a wet fin. You just want to scream, dude, you live in the ocean of happiness with your dolphin friends. And that right there is the crux of the issue, unacknowledged pain. Society has this nasty habit of assuming that wealth is a magical cure all for life's problems. Heartbreak, buy a bigger yacht, existential dread, diamond-encrusted therapy cat. But here's the thing, sadness doesn't discriminate based on tax brackets. It doesn't care how many zeros are in your bank account or what kind of thread count your sheets have. It just shows up like an unwelcome houseguest who insists on wearing your bathrobe. And when it does, wealthy men are often met with a wall of disbelief. Friends, family, even therapists might struggle to empathize with their problems, dismissing their concerns as rich people problems. Wealthy men often feel the need to be stoic, the rock, the provider. They're not allowed to show weakness, so they bottle it up, pretending everything is fine. But deep down they're hurting. Look, I'm not asking you to start a GoFundMe for the emotionally fragile billionaire down the street, but what I am asking is that we try to approach this topic with a little more nuance, a little more empathy, because behind the yachts and the private jets, behind the carefully curated Instagram feeds and the air of effortless superiority, there are real people with real problems. It's crucial to recognize that wealth does not shield individuals from pain or loneliness. It doesn't exempt them from the human experience. In fact, it can often amplify it, creating a unique set of challenges that are rarely acknowledged or understood. Greater awareness of these hidden challenges can foster empathy and understanding, bridging the gap between perceived privilege and often unseen struggles. It's about recognizing that beneath the surface of affluence, there's a shared human experience that binds us all. Thank you for watching.
So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's turn the page on a new adventure together. Get ready to experience books like never before, only on VBook 360. Like, comment, and share to support the channel and keep the video magic alive. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, every video has a story, and every story deserves to be shared. See you in the next video.